told you that I do believe that this is a setup job. I believe NABJ knew that President Trump was going to go in. They had Rachel Scott. They probably gave her the go-ahead to be hostile. This was not President Trump being hostile. This was Rachel Scott being hostile. And so this was about the headlines to be spread throughout the world, not just the United States, but the world. Look at this from The Guardian. Black journalists respond to disastrous Trump panel at annual convention. Well, disastrous in whose opinion? Trump's NABJ appearance was the train wreck many expected. That from MSNBC News. Now, I would expect a liberal commentator to call it a train wreck, but a news organization shouldn't make that declaration. But we know that NBC and MSNBC are not news organizations. It's propaganda machines. It is literally the fake news media. Let's see. Another headline for you. Politico writes, 5 things Trump said in combative interview at Black Journalist Conference. The only reason it was combative is because this Rachel Scott acted like an asshole. And I don't know how else to explain it, but that's what she did. USA Today, Trump takes back spotlight with inflammatory comments to Black journalists. 4 takeaways. Did Trump make the inflammatory comments? Or was she the one that was being inflammatory? I would argue that Rachel Scott was the one that was being inflammatory and literally stoking the flames of division with her interview. And then, of course, The Hill, Stephen A. Smith, blasts Trump NABJ speech as immature. Trump wasn't immature. Trump is literally dodging arrows. I didn't want to use the term dodging bullets anymore because that was reality at the rally a few weeks ago. Trump's dodging arrows. He's having a bob and weave. He knows he's in enemy territory. He knows anything he say is going to be used against him, even in a bogus fake news manner. So if you don't believe me on this, let's just take the beginning of the speech. Okay, let's just take the very beginning. And you see if you think that this woman is respectful.
Color, who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you?
So first off, you hear the laughter? They laugh with him, not at him. And there are many Black journalists in the audience. I think many of them see the writing on the wall. What I think Rachel Scott knows is that Kamala Harris is getting beat by not just President Trump, but the policies of the Trump administration and what Make America Great Again policies actually mean for America. She knows they're getting beat. So she comes throwing punches right out of the gate, and I think President Trump handles this fabulously.
Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the Black population of this country. I've done so much for the Black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for Black workers and Black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically Black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it.
So you hear the smattering of applause? That means there's people in there that agree with him. Many people are probably very scared to applaud or know that as a journalist, you shouldn't really be showing your side. Doesn't really play in journalism anymore. But that is my belief. And the bottom line is, why do we even have an organization called the National Association of Black Journalists? Could you imagine if there was an association, the National Association of White Journalists? There's no way that would survive. Everything about the left, everything about the media sees color. I don't. In fact, it's the last thing that I care about. And I think it's the last thing President Trump cares about. Yet they make us out to be the ones to be racist. And yet what does the Democrat Party do? Separate everyone into little special classes of people. Oh, this one's an immigrant. This one's undocumented. This one is documented. This one's black. This one's Indian. This one's African American. This one's American Indian. This one, I mean, come on. How about we all just be Americans?
I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
It is a disgrace. And he's absolutely right. And notice the term she used. Answer the question about your rhetoric. Well, rhetoric is a biased term in and of itself. You're making a determination of what's being said. Is it rhetoric or is it fact? And so with the term she uses, rhetoric, she's already exposing herself as a Trump hater. So now why would you go sit down with a Trump hater? Why? Because President Trump has balls. Because President Trump shows, I'm not afraid of anybody and I'll stand up next to my record. And yeah, President Trump has some tough, salty talk along the way. Good. He tells it like it is. Good. It's what I want from somebody. I don't want these politicians that are dancing around issues, telling people what they want to hear, depending on the room that they're in. That is not what we need to make America great again. What we need is President Trump. This woman, boy, I'll tell you what, she makes me sick to my stomach. Rachel Scott should be ashamed of herself. And ABC ought to have a real talking with her. This is, President Trump went back to the limited time. It was interesting because they were late. They couldn't get the equipment working. Anyone that's been to a Trump rally knows that when the equipment's not working, he makes sure he lets you know about it. And if you're a contractor, you're probably not getting that work again.
Where
sir,
I have
if you
a
don't mind,
hostile judge.
We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
Excuse you. You're the one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
If we can move on now to the state of the race, sir, I want to get back to the campaign.
Yeah. Thank you, President Trump. See, he's disgusted by her. I'm disgusted by her. He's sitting there, and you know what? How gracious is it for him to sit there in front of this woman who is just absolutely rude? And I'm not the only one that thinks that she's absolutely rude. I saw this on social media.
Let me get this shit right. You mean to tell me y'all flooded Chicago with all these immigrants, like Trump say, the bad ones. Y'all done flooded Chicago with all these immigrants, and it's already enough violence out there, and now they robbing people with a translation app. Motherfuckers can't even speak English, but rob somebody on the red line with a translation app? Get the fuck out of here. Where's the taxpayers' money going? Chicago is already riddled with violence. Black on black crime. Killing kids. Over 100 shootings over the holiday. And y'all let more fucked up motherfuckers come in Chicago. And why isn't the taxpayers' money working like they do in all the other areas? In the white neighborhoods, in the suburban neighborhoods. They paying just as much or more taxes. And y'all let this shit go on and then just scoop up the bodies later. Black on black crime is fucking ridiculous. Kids getting shot up. Damnly every day. And motherfuckers robbing with. Let me get this shit right. You mean to tell me y'all flooded Chicago with all these immigrants?
See what I mean? That's my kind of woman right there. Another one telling it like it is. She supports President Trump. She's in inner city Chicago. She knows this was a setup job at the NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. If I was a journalist at that conference, I'd be ashamed for Rachel Scott, the woman asking President Trump the questions. I'll play you more of them. This is President Trump talking about a cognitive test and how he'd go to do a cognitive test and Kamala Harris should do a cognitive test. And that he's willing to do it. Well, of course, that offends everybody. Somehow that's got to be racial, even though he said he'd do a cognitive test off with Joe Biden. A cognitive test off. Is that what you call it? I don't know. But listen to this.
I suggested Harris that let's take one. I said, Joe and I will go and take a cognitive test. Now, I'd do it with her, too. I would do it with her also. You know what? She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exam, so maybe she wouldn't pass the cognitive test.
Mr. President,
Are you saying she wouldn't pass? Just to be clear,
I'm just giving you the facts.
It is the facts. And it's factually fact-checked as true.